you should learn anything that you see above. That's a choice. That's why I say everything in the code that I've written is tailored to the individual person based on the principle that I've outlined throughout this entire program. I mean, you solve the problems of the individual person, you solve the problems of all people, okay? So, yes, you learn anything. I don't want that to be misinterpreted. You listen to everybody, particularly white people. Shouting down white people when they're talking is something I'd never do. Let that white person talk, because white people know a lot, and they have intentions, and those intentions just may affect you. You better find out what they are, all right? Information is power. There's a radio station here, Radio 1, Dr. Kathy Hughes. I mean, they use that slogan, and that's a slogan that really means something.
Mm-hmm.
Information is power. That's telling you something about doing something. See, a lot of slogans that black people have don't tell you anything about what to do. That's a slogan that tells you what to do. Get information. I don't care where this information is coming from, because the more you know and understand about anything, a grain of sand at the bottom of the ocean, the more you know and understand about that grain of sand, just might, somewhere down the line, make you more powerful than you already are. So have an open mind. When people are talking, particularly people who know a little something, and just about everybody knows something, listen. Don't shut people down when they are talking. You learn something, even if it's no more than what they're talking is nonsense. You've learned something there, and you've learned why it's nonsense. That starts you to thinking, all right? So it's no harm whatsoever. I want that to be clearly understood, but be able to tell what you're listening to, be able to interpret it, what you're listening to, and then think over it and pick out the things that you can use in order to do what? Solve problems, and leave the things that don't solve problems, leave that be. That's it. Very simple.
Today it's time to stop singing and start swinging.
We're coming to get our check.
You are now listening to P.A.R. That's People Activity Radio, and I'm your host, John G. Horse. You have found your family in a peaceful place. P.A.R. is a family-friendly information distribution program seeking to inform non-white people, in particular black classifieds, and assisting in counter-racist codification. Yes, indeed. We're going to let Mike talk to us for a little bit. The title of today's episode is The Importance of Applying Codification from What You Learn. The entire planet is a classroom. One more again, the importance of applying codification from what you learn. The entire planet is a classroom.
The government don't wanna see, but it froze about was living. He wouldn't let his people.
Talk to him, Mike.
All I wanna say is that they don't really care. They don't really care. All I wanna say is that.
Where do we begin? Where do we begin is always the question, and I am your gracious host, John G. Horse, and this is People Activity Radio. You have found your family in a peaceful place. And one more time, the title of today's episode is The Importance of Applying Codification from What You Learn. The entire planet is a classroom. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And we're going to get right into the work or we're going to get right into the information. Last episode, there was how should I say this? A code that I tried to disseminate amongst my listeners. And it was a simple code in the aftermath of the siege or attempted siege, coup d'etat, insurrection, riot, protest at the Capitol building of the United States of America. And that code for people who are subject to black classification in these United States from old John G. Horse was sit back, be quiet, and collect information. And that code was suggested because you want to sit back, be quiet, collect information for your survival as a person subject to black classification in the United States of America and or abroad. That is my conjecture. That is my perspective. I could be in error. Let's move on. Under that context, we're going to start today's show off with two articles. And you know, old John G. Horse don't like reading articles because it dries up the show real quick. But I have to read the literature in order to set the palette for the remainder of the show, which is a continuation of the previous show where we discuss codified interpretation versus perpetual confusion, knowing when to sit back, be quiet, and collect information. White Magic 101. Title of today's episode is The Importance of Applying Codification from What You Learn. The entire planet is a classroom. What do you mean, John G. Horse? The entire planet is a classroom. Well, I'm going to tell you what I mean. Let John G. put his glasses on. John G. don't see like he used to see. So I have to use the spectacles in order to read from this article. And this article was written in October 21st, 2016 by PBS NewsHour. And the title of the article is, for your researchable reference, FBI warned of white supremacists in law enforcement 10 years ago. Has anything changed? And again, this article was written in October 21st, 2016. So the FBI allegedly warned of white extremists infiltrating law enforcement in 2006. Let's get to the literature. And it reads, increased attention toward the killing of black men and women by police throughout the past year has ignited national conversation on racism and law enforcement. From Freddie Gray in April 2015 to Deborah Danner, an emotionally disturbed woman fatally shot this week by an NYPD officer. Protest raises how police engage with communities of color. Black folk. I don't know nothing about that communities of color. I'm sorry, this is John G talking. That's not the article. I'm saying black folk. Let's move on. In light of, or perhaps despite, the increased scrutiny, FBI Director James Comey told police officers at a national conference last Sunday that because of insufficient data on use of force, Americans usually have no idea whether racial bias in policing is really an epidemic. Pointing to current public outrage over police killings of African Americans, Comey said, "The absence of good information and data has aided in the growing belief that police officers target particular communities." That is the narrative, he told attendees of the International Association of Chief of Police. It is a narrative driven by video images of real misconduct, possible misconduct, and perceived misconduct. But even if there aren't hard statistics, the problem of racial bias among police isn't new. In fact, it's been a concern of the FBI for at least a decade. Exactly 10 years ago, this week, the FBI warned of the potential consequences, including bias, of white supremacist groups infiltrating local and state law enforcement, indicating it was a significant threat of national security. In the 2006 bulletin, the FBI detailed the threat of white nationalists and skinheads infiltrating police in order to disrupt investigations against fellow members and recruit other supremacists. The bulletin was released during a period of scandal for many law enforcement agencies throughout the country, including neo-Nazi gangs formed by members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who harassed blacks in the communities. Similar investigations revealed officers and entire agencies with hate groups ties in Illinois, Ohio, and Texas. And I spoke about these white extremist gangs in law enforcement in an episode of People Activity Radio titled Police Officers versus Race Soldiers, the importance of counter-racist codification. If you wanted to do a little more research, please check out that episode of People Activity Radio, found on all YouTube and podcast platforms. Let's move on and continue reading the article. Much of the bulletin has been redacted, but in it, the FBI identified white supremacists in law enforcement as a concern because of their access to both restricted areas vulnerable to sabotage and elected officials or people who could be seen as potential targets for violence. I'm going to read that piece one more time because we still ain't cleared all the smoke from the old ambush of the United States Capitol building. Let me read that thing one more time. Much of the bulletin has been redacted, but in it, the FBI identified white supremacists in law enforcement as a concern because of their access to both restricted areas vulnerable to sabotage and elected officials or people who could be seen as potential targets for violence. The memo also warned of ghost skins, hate group members who don't overtly display their beliefs in order to blend into society and covertly advance white supremacist causes. And old John G gonna stop that article right there. It goes on and on and on. And if you wanted to read the article in its entirety, it is titled FBI Warned of White Supremacists in Law Enforcement 10 Years Ago. Has anything changed? And that is on PBS NewsHour or pbs.org. And again, that article was written October 21st, 2016. And I'm going to follow that thing up with a Newsweek article. Because the question would be, once the FBI identified white extremists white supremacists infiltrating local law enforcement and law agencies. And old John G says not only law enforcement, all areas of people activity have been saturated, dipped, broiled, and smoked in white supremacy. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war have all been infiltrated by people who classify themselves as white. And we here on People Activity Radio suspect, believe in the religion of white supremacy. That being said, what was done about the FBI investigation? What was done about law enforcement being infiltrated by white supremacist groups? Hell, in the article they said one of the main reasons wasn't to protect black folk, it was to protect legislators, politicians, and people who may have been targets. Excuse my Octaves family, because the smoke still hadn't cleared from the riots and protests and illegal entry of United States Capitol building. Let's move on. What was done to solve the problem of white supremacist infiltration? Well, I believe in hold on, family. I'm trying to talk and think at the same time. I'm pulling up the following article, which answers the question, what was done? FBI ranks. And this is by Newsweek, found on newsweek.com. And this article was written in August 8th, 2019 by Benjamin Fearnow. Lord, I don't even know if that's a real name, but that's what they say who wrote it. Let's move on. And the article is titled in Newsweek on newsweek.com, FBI ranks black identity extremists bigger threat than Al-Qaeda white supremacists, leaked documents say. And the article reads, leaked FBI documents indicate black identity extremists and animal rights activists are among the agency's top counter-racism priorities under President Donald Trump. The FBI's priority list documents obtained by the Young Turks Thursday lay out the Bureau's 2018 fiscal year focal points in counterterrorism, cybercrime, and counterintelligence. The 2018-2019 threat guidance documents describe black identity extremists, BIEs, as those who use force or violence in a violation of criminal law in response to perceived racism and injustice in American society. The files claim some BIEs, black identity extremists, acted in hopes of establishing a separate black homeland or autonomous black social institutions, communities, or governing organizations within the USA. The article continues to read, an internal FBI report from August 2017 was widely criticized for using the BIE label, the Black Identity Extremist label, which many called racist. But the Consolidated Strategy Guide documents leaked this week show the FBI kept the term and made BIEs, Black Identity Extremists, one of its top counterterrorism priorities. Under the Trump administration, they're considered a bigger threat than terror groups such as Al-Qaeda. Animal rights, environmental extremists, and anti-authority extremists were also deemed top existential threats. Hold on, what the hell is a anti-authority extremist? Sometimes you got to look at the words of the white supremacists. animal rights / environmental extremists, and anti-authority extremists were also deemed top existential threats. Where's the white supremacists in all this? But I digress. Let me continue to read some of this mess. Under a cryptic strategy titled Iron Fist, the leaked documents suggest the Bureau plans to use infiltration and other undercover techniques to mitigate threats posed by black extremist groups, including exploiting the felony status of some members. I'm not finna read the rest of this. You kind of get the gist of what old John G is getting at. 2006, FBI puts out a memo, a report of domestic local law enforcement in the United States being infiltrated by white extremists and white supremacist groups. And hell, we got on record neo-Nazi white supremacist groups and sheriff departments, and in particular the Los Angeles Sheriff Department and others across the nation. What was done about that? Hell, they said that black folk who are victims of these white supremacists who have infiltrated law enforcement are the #1 counter-terror priority by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and or the FBI. Now, if I worded that wrong, I apologize in advance. I could be in error, but I interpret that information as this. We are in a system of racism, white supremacy, a global system of anti-blackness, white terror domination, and it is designed to mistreat people who are subject to black classification. That is John G's conjecture. I could be an idiot. Maybe I don't know how to read and comprehend. Feel free to leave your comments in an appropriate area, wherever you feel you need to leave them. But last I checked, your chickens done came home to roost. Now, what we have learned in the aftermath of our United States Capitol buildings being overran by people who classify themselves as white, and we believe in white supremacy. We have found report after report, as you heard in the clips that I played prior to speaking, of people who classify themselves as white who are doctors, of people who classify themselves as white and who are lawyers, people who will classify themselves as white who are teachers, firefighters, police officers, janitors, actors, florists, hell, government officials. I mean, we can go on, and I didn't see a lot of people who was toothless from out of some trailer parks who was on the suspect list of the thousands of people who classify themselves as white and we believe in white supremacy, who overran the United States Capitol building, which led to legislators and government officials being evacuated for their own safety. There are reports of some law enforcement just opening doors and allowing people to illegally enter the Capitol building. There are reports of some government officials opening doors. There are reports of people who classify themselves as white and are entertainers that supported these behaviors, this vandalism. Listen, I'm not here to wag my finger at people who classify themselves as white, and we believe in white supremacy. I'm just reporting information. And the information tells me this. The information has told me my counter-racist codified suspicion of all people who classify themselves as white is correct and exact and logical, if indeed I am serious about surviving the system of anti-blackness that we know as racism, white supremacy, while being subject to black classification here on this planet. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, firefighters, police officers, hell, government officials who classify themselves as white. It's all being rounded up right now in an ongoing investigation of the breach. We don't have to sit here all day and all night long breaking down every morsel of information. When you get constructive information, you take that information and then you apply it to your life for your best interests. And in the situation that we find ourselves in under a global system of racism and white supremacy, we need to take notice of when white folks are squabbling, because at the end of the day, what the hell are they squabbling about? Every time they squabble, they're squabbling over who is going to dominate non-white people, in particular people who are subject to black classification. The fight's about who's going to push you around. You understand me? Now, I could be in error. Feel free to correct me in the comments section. But I don't see no evidence of me being incorrect. History is telling me this. Anytime you find people who classify themselves as white squabbling to a level of going toe-to-toe, they squabbling over who finna dominate. You understand me? Now, I could be in error, but I'm going to digress on that. Let's move on. Now, when you get the information, the title of today's show is Applying the Information. How do you apply understanding that you are in a system of anti-blackness, a system of white terror domination, a system of white supremacy? What can you do to apply that? What can you do as a person subject to black classification to apply to your everyday life? Because when you go to work, you got to go to work with white folk. When you go to the store, you got to go to the store with white folk. When you go to a bank, when you go to handle everyday business, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to interact with people who classify themselves as white. You understand me? Yes, you do. You have to move around and navigate being suspicious every which way you go. Yes, indeed you do. You have to codify your suspicions in order for you to survive and navigate through said environment. Yes, you do. It ain't glorious and it ain't fun. Because before you step out the door, you got to have doggone near a war strategy just to go to the mailbox. Yes, indeed. This is what we at, baby. I'm sorry, family. This is where we at, family. You are under white supremacy and you're subject to black classification. Sometimes you just need some water thrown in your face. And that's constructive information. Once you understand this fact, then you codify your movements day in, day out. It ain't nothing wrong with coming to this conclusion. The only thing wrong is being ignorant to it and walking your behind into a doggone ambush, ignorant, and becoming a dead victim. You understand me? How many cases of people walking into a whooping do we see and hear about every day simply because they are absent of a code and they are subject to non-white black classification? Talking about their rights and all that. You got the right to survive. Anything goes when it comes to mistreating people subject to black classification. History tells us this. This is the John G. Horace talking. Hell, open a book. And I'm going to have to apologize in advance, family. I'm a little bit emotional Because when I say the term, or I speak on the term white supremacy, that's the system of white supremacy kill black folk. That's what it does. It's the most efficient criminal enterprise of wiping people out that we've ever seen on this planet. That's either true or it's not true. Here on People Activity Radio, John G. Horse. All the evidence tell me that it's true. Yes, indeed, family. Ain't no time for around here worrying about who like you. Your survival is more important than being liked. And sometimes being codified and applying constructive information for your survival may have some people who you want to like you not liking you. And if I'm going to be unliked for prioritizing me and my family's survival, but then go on it, can't nothing about know who you and how you perceive my God-given right to survive. Who cares? Go on about your business. You understand me? Mike is talking about they don't care about us. I care about us. I care about me. I care about my family. I care about people subject to black classification getting through this mess. In order for us to get through this mess, we're going to have to be able to apply codification from what we learn. Family have the God-given right to defend yourself against any harm or any threat. And you must codify and apply your everyday behavior in that manner. I'm going to say that one more time. Those of you who know how to read in between the lines, you are knowing what I'm saying. Family, those of us who are subject to black classification have the God-given right to protect ourselves from danger, harm, or threat. Period. And you must codify your behavior and your culture as such. Family, you have the God-given right to survive and to protect yourself from any perceived harm or threat. The title of today's show is The Importance of Applying Codification from What You Learn. The entire planet is a classroom. And I hope I have contributed to less confusion. And always remember, keep learning and stay codified. We're going to bring you on home with a quick snippet of Neely Fuller Jr. You know how we do it. Cue that clear.
Somebody encountered some white supremacists who was black and didn't know what they were doing and how they were doing it. That's why I put in the book, they're the most familiar mystery in the world. They're familiar in that we are looking at them all the time. We pass white people all day on the street. We work next to them. We're in the motel beds with them on Sunday morning. And don't know nothing about it. Where is the proof? Because why is it that they run everything and we don't run nothing? And we're looking right at them and can't figure them out. Okay? They are the biggest mystery in the world. We always talk about things mysterious and, Harry Potter and the wizard and all this. I mean, hey, when you look at a white person, hey, you're looking at something phenomenal. Now, here's a drunk white man, You say, these are the people running the world? Yeah. I mean, they're great. You standing there, hey, buddy, old buddy, And you say, now him and his cousins and his brother-in-law, you just got here from the moon. But you look at, these are the people who are running the world. But you look at some of them, you wouldn't think it.
but it's true.
And it's less of it.
And we can't figure out how they do it. Is it some kind of magic? Is it something they creep around at midnight and do? You know? Because you're working right with them every day. If it was some white people in this room right now, I'd be saying the same thing. All right? I would tell them, because I've done it with them present. I said, you are a mystery to me.
Yes.
You know? I was in the army with you. I mean, I was in the same tents with you. I was made sergeant, and I was supposed to be somehow telling you what to do, even though somebody else was telling me what to tell you. All right? And I cannot figure you all out to save my life. Literally. I don't know how you do what you do. And I'm looking at you every day, following you around looking at you, and still can't figure it out. They got a code like you wouldn't believe. That's the only conclusion I can come to.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't even be having this conversation this evening if that was not true. They got a code. Now, all of them don't have to do it. You know, the way I figured, all they have to do is each one of them just do a little piece of it. That's the key. All right? And when you get all of them, it's like on a jigsaw puzzle, certain things that they do, certain things that they don't do. That's what it is. They have a code. See, we are open people. Anything that we think of, we just throw it out there. Like, we ain't hiding nothing. I mean, and all like that. But see, they are very secretive.
Very.
You know? And the key things, they definitely kept secret.